Hello and welcome to Surds Made Simple. On today's episode, we're going to be tackling multiplying surds. Now, multiplying surds is, I would say, relatively straightforward, but when you add other previous topics in this series, it can maybe get a bit more challenging. So before watching this video, you're going to have a solid grasp of the previous two episodes of this series. So I recommend you watch those before watching this one. So as you can see in these examples, I've used variables, but I'm going to use numerical examples later. So you can see we have root a times root a equals a. So this would signify that if you have the root of any number, not just only surds, and you times that by its root again, you're going to get the number. So root a times root a is a. Any number which is the same number under a square root sign that is squared will result in that being the number. Now, if that sounds confusing, it may become more apparent when I show you the numerical example. Next example, we have root a times root b, which is root ba. So that's just to signify that when you have two different numbers and they're both under root signs, you do not disregard the root sign when multiplying them. You keep the root sign, however, you multiply the two numbers that are under the root sign. So root a times root b is root ba, or root b times a. Now moving on to the final example, x root a times y root b equals xy root a b. So if you have numbers on the outside of a root sign, you multiply those two numbers. And as we saw in the second example, carrying over the same principle, if you have two numbers that are different, that are both under root signs, you multiply them as well. So you would end up getting xy root ab being the answer to x root a times y root b. Now moving on to numerical examples. If you had, for example, root 42 and you multiply that by root 42, you would get 42. So the square root of any number times that very same square root will be equal to the number that is being square rooted. Moving on to the next example, if you have root 6 times root 5, that would be root 30. So as you can see, two different numbers there, and we're multiplying them under the root sign, but we're not disregarding it. Moving on to the final example, we have 2 root 6 times 4 root 5. So 2 times 4 is 8, and 6 times 5 is 30. And we know that we don't disregard the root sign because they're two different numbers. So that becomes root 30, and 4 times 2 is 8, so 8 root 30 would be the answer to that question. Now I'd like you to try some questions for yourselves. So feel free to pause the video here and try these questions out. I'm going to be telling you the answer in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so you may be a bit confused when you look at these answers, and that's because I've gone and done it step by step, so I'm going to talk you through it. If you have root 7 and you multiply that by root 7, you would get root 49. However, we know that if you times two numbers, which are both roots, square roots of a number, by each other, so if you times root 7 by root 7 or root 6 by root 6, then the answer would be 7 and 6. So root 7 times root 7 is root 49, but we know that the square root of 49 is 7. So we get root 49 first, and then we simplify that to 7. Don't worry if you didn't write root 49. 7 is the answer, and if you put root 49 as your answer, you need to make sure that you understand when you times two numbers which are both square roots of the same number together, you will get the number that's under the square root. Moving on to the second question. Root 3 times root 11 equals root 33. Now this is because if root 3, so 3 and 11 are different numbers, so you can't just disregard the root sign in this scenario. And 3 times 11 is 33, so then we end up getting root 33. On the final question before the challenge, we have 4 root 5 multiplied by 2 root 7, and we get 8 root 35. So we're just doing 4 times 2 on the outside to get 8, and 5 times 7 inside of the root sign. Because they're two different numbers, we can't discard the root sign, so we get 35. Now the challenge. We have root 2 times root 5 in brackets multiplied by 2 root 10. So we should know through BODMAS that we first tackle the operation that's inside of the bracket. So that'll be root 2 times root 5. We end up getting root 10. Now, root 10 times 2 root 10 may have confused some of you. So root 10 times 2 root 10 would just be, you don't times the 2 in the 2 root 10 by the other root 10. You just, 2 root 10 is sort of one expression and root 10 is another expression. And you just follow the same laws that we've been applying to get 2 root 100. And how do you get that exactly? Well, root 10 times root 10, 10 times 10 is what? 100. So that's just the second step there. If you didn't write that in your working out, don't worry. I'm just doing it step by step so you guys can understand. And so, okay, once we reach 2 root 100, it seems that root 100 is root 10 times root 10. So the square root of 100 is 10. And we know it was root 10 times root 10. So you could have just got there straight away, but I'm just breaking it down step by step. So 2 root 100 would be equal to 2 times the root of 100, which is 10. So 2 times 10. And 2 times 10 equals 20. So that should be your final answer. Now, I hope you have gained an understanding of multiplying surds. And if you don't understand it, just continue practicing. Come back to this video, rewatch it, and eventually you will understand it. Thank you for watching, and enjoy learning and exploring maths.